Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have the Brutus Monroe June Inspiration Box for 2019, and I'm a little late to the party here. The box is no longer available, but a lot of these items are still in the store, so I will link those down below. But let's go ahead and take a look at what came in this kit. You're going to start off with the enamel pin, and the enamel pin is amazing, so I love that cassette tape. So put that in your collection of pins. Let's look at the papers, because the papers are absolutely beautiful. You're going to get this mic drop cardstock. So it's not the glitter stock. It's a little bit different, but oh, isn't that beautiful? And then you're going to get 2 pieces of the glitter stock in the color blush pink, which is gorgeous. And then you're going to get a bunch of neon paper, but you're also going to get this holographic sticker paper. You get a bunch of the neon paper, so 2 of the blue, 2 of like that peachy color, 2 green, and then a pink and an orange. So super pretty. And let me show you that the holographic sticker paper is actually sticker paper. So I'll peel that back and check it out. And it's really easy to work with. So that takes care of your paper. Then as far as the embellishments and things, there's a bunch in here. So your best bet is just to go ahead and subscribe. This is the mic drop embossing powder, which is gorgeous. Then you get a bunch of these neon gems and metal spikes. So those would be so cool. I didn't use the metal spikes on the cards, but man, wouldn't that be so cool for a 3D project? And I love those little gems. They're all neon color. So everything coordinates so beautifully. You're also going to get this ribbon, and this is the Rockstar ribbon. Pretty cool, huh? And it comes on its own little chipboard bobbin. Then you get the enamel cassette tape. Isn't that cool? And you get 2 cassette tape chipboards. So aren't those great as well? Boy, this just takes me back to my childhood. I'm not even kidding. Love it. Mixtape, anyone? All right, and then you're also going to get that sequin mix, which is just gorgeous. It has a bunch of different stars and all those beautiful neon sequins. And now we'll move on to our foilable panels. And these are beautiful. So you always get 2 each of the designs. So you get 2 of this one, 2 of those cool guitars, 2 of the headphones, and then 2 of the cassettes as well. Super pretty. Maybe not pretty, but very cool. And then the stamp set is the Rock On stamp set. This set is so awesome. Love it. I can just see making all kinds of cards for my nephews and, well, just anybody really. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. I'm going to take one of those foilable panels, and I'm not actually going to foil it. I'm going to use my Copic markers, which are just alcohol ink markers, and I am going to color lots of the images that are on this background. I just love this background, and I knew it would stand out even more if I colored. So I'm not going to show you all the coloring, but I did grab one of the photo frame laser cuts, and I'm just kind of marking out where I want the coloring to be so I don't have to color the entire thing. And I'm just going to finish up just using those colors, and that's that. I didn't color the whole thing, but I did do a decent amount. I'm going to take that laser cut, the photo frame, and I'm going to cover that with the Brutus Monroe embossing ink. And then I'm going to sprinkle some night embossing powder all over that photo frame. Now the night embossing powder is actually the embossing powder of the month. You can only get that through subscription. So if that's something that you are interested in, I will have that linked down below. And it is gorgeous. So I'm going to heat set this. And you'll know that your embossing powder is done when it turns shiny in this case. So it'll go from being a matte finish to being shiny. And you'll just want to keep moving your heat gun or your heat tool all over it. But take a look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So that is the embossing powder of the month. And so I'm going to kind of get an idea of how big my image needs to be. So I'm going to take one of those rocker guys, and I'm going to stamp him onto some Express It cardstock, and I'm going to use my Raven Detail ink from Brutus Monroe. This is a Copic friendly ink, and you just kind of want to let that dry a little bit. You can heat that with your heat tool, but that will ensure that that ink won't smudge when you start to do your Copic coloring. Once again, I'm not going to show you all of the coloring. because that's not what this video is about. It's mostly about just putting these cards together, but it's pretty simple what I did. And I love how he turned out. He looks so cool. Wish I knew somebody who looked like that, honestly. I fussy cut him out, and then I'm going to attach just another piece of white cardstock to the back of my photo frame because I want to make this look like a Polaroid, but you know, a funky one with that night embossing powder. And then I'm going to use some more liquid glue, and I'm going to adhere my rocker guy right inside of that like he was in a picture, just like so. So I'll cover the back of that with that liquid glue. And I'll stick him inside the photo frame, and then he's ready to go. But then I'll move on to the other parts of my card. Now, I screwed up when I embossed the first time, and so I'm not going to show you that part. What I forgot to do was use my embossing bag, my magic embossing bag. And that's from Brutus Monroe as well. I've talked about that before. I really love that thing. And then I just cover that with that mic drop embossing powder that came in this kit. That stuff's pretty gorgeous. And then I'm just going to heat set that, and then I'm going to fussy cut that out. And I'm using the Brutus Monroe scissors as well. I actually really like these scissors too. And then I'm going to start assembling my entire card. So I'll put some liquid glue all over the back panel and attach that to some lunchbox cardstock. That's my card base. I'm really kind of on a lunchbox cardstock kick right now. Love that stuff. And that's from Brutus Monroe as well. I just went Brutus Monroe crazy. In case you didn't hear, I am actually new to their design team, or their inspiration team. So I put some foam tape on the back of my sentiments and then stuck that on the card, and that's going to finish off card number 1. For card number 2, we're going to go ahead and use that awesome holographic sticker paper that came in the kit. So I'm going to trim that down to be the size, the whole size of a card front, an A2 card front. So that's 4¼ by 11, or no, 4¼ by 5½ inches. And then to get that started, I'm going to put that right onto some white cardstock, because I want that to be the card base. Or not the card base, but the card panel. So you just peel back a little bit. This stuff is so easy to work with, and then you can slowly peel off the rest of the backing paper, and then you don't get any bubbles. So that worked out really, really nicely, and I just am in love with that holographic paper. I'm also going to use one of the cassette tape chipboards, so I'm trimming down some white cardstock just to fit on the back of that. And then I'm going to, you don't see me do it, but I do trace on the inside of that upper part, so that I know where I want to stamp my sentiment. And I tried to stamp it in black on the back of that, and I just thought that's just too much black. So I do end up grabbing some Rouge, I want to say Rouge, surface ink, because clearly I'm not real good with English here. So I believe it's Rouge, because that makes more sense. And then I just stamp that down a few times to make sure that that is good and crisp. And then to take my cassette tape to the next level, I'm going to cover that with that clear embossing ink and then wipe up my mess. That's why I like to use my glass mat. It's so easy to clean up with. And then I'm going to use that mic drop embossing powder that came in the kit and just cover that entire cassette tape with it. If this does not make me think back to when I was like in junior high, I don't know what would. Because I made some mixtapes in my time. I don't think I ever gave anybody, well, maybe I did give somebody a mixtape, but anyway, I sure did make a few mixtapes. It was so fun. And then trying to record off the radio. I don't know if any of you remember that. I'm going to take my eraser and just clear off the pencil marks that I had made, and then I'm going to use some liquid glue to adhere that cassette tape right down to my cardstock. And then it'll look like a little tape. That thing is awesome. So I feel like I need to go to the store, and the Brutus Monroe store, and buy a bunch more of those cassette tapes, because I don't ever want to run out. I'm going to stamp on the neon paper now, and I'm just going to stamp each of the notes onto the cardstock. And then I'm going to trim those, fussy cut those out. So I don't mind fussy cutting. I've said that a zillion times. I know some people do, but I really don't mind. These are easy as well, and they're small, so it's not that big of a deal. And I just use the Detail Raven ink to stamp those out. And now I've kind of got my placement of where I want those, and I'm going to pull out the sequins. So this is the sequin mix, and I'm telling you, it's gorgeous. It has like 3 different sizes of stars, and it has all those gorgeous colors of neon sequins. And so I'm just gluing those down using my crystal katana. This thing is amazing. Now that I have my craft room sort of in order, I am so happy to have my crystal katana back. And now I'm just gonna glue all those little pieces down, and then I'll use the glue to adhere the cassette tape right down to the front of that. And I know that one top star is sticking off, but I'll just trim that down. It was easy enough to trim. And then I'll also go ahead and take that card panel, and I will attach that to a white card base using some liquid glue once again. And once I get that all on there, that is going to finish off card number 2. That holographic stuff is incredible. This just screams 80s, I'm telling you. All right, moving on to card number 3, I have to do one of the foilables. I just have to foil it. So I've been letting my Amazon Basics laminator heat up for probably a good 30-45 minutes just to make sure it was good and warm. And I'm using the Deco foil in the color Deep Blue, and I just made a little sandwich with some copy paper, and I'm actually going to run that through my laminator about 3 or 4 times. I want to make sure that that foil has really heated on to the foilable, and so in order to ensure that, I run it through about 3 or 4 times. I don't know how other laminators are, but I've noticed with my Amazon Basics, I want to make sure and do that many times. So this is the beautiful part, the fun reveal. And so isn't that cool? You end up having these 2 pieces, and I haven't actually made a card with that leftover foil, but you really could. I mean, I just haven't done it yet. Isn't that pretty? So I know exactly who I'm gonna give this card to. I had them in mind the whole time. So I trimmed down some of that mic drop cardstock, and then I even trimmed it down a little bit more for another card panel. And I'm going to stamp out my sentiment using the Jack-O-Lantern surface ink, because complementary colors, I just figured with that blue Deco foil, the orange would really pop on there. So I'll stamp that out, and then I'm going to fussy cut that out as well. And if I had been thinking, I would have cut down the mic drop just in some different sections so that I wouldn't have used all of that, because you don't get to see a lot of it. You only get to see it on the sides. But I'll be honest, I was FaceTiming with my son, and I was just like living the dream, man. I was crafting and talking to my kid, and so I wasn't even thinking about wasting paper. It was like, sky's the limit, baby. I can just do whatever. That's how I felt anyway. So I'm using a little bit of liquid glue, and I'm taking those tiny little pieces that I cut down, and I'm going to just adhere those. I'm using my glass mat to try and make that as straight as possible. And then for this next one, I just kind of eyeballed it by turning it to the side. And then I will turn that over and trim off the excess. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to grab my T-ruler. I did put some foam tape on the back of my sentiment, both of them. So it's going to say, "Happy Birthday, Rockstar." And so I just use that, like I said, the T-ruler, to try and make that as straight as possible. And yeah, I love that. I have a white card base, so I'm going to use that same liquid glue, and I'll adhere that to my white card base. And then for a final bit of embellishment, I'm finally going to grab out the neon gems. I thought about using the metal spikes, but then I just thought, well, this wouldn't make it very mailable. And I just thought those would be a lot more fun on a 3D project. So I'm probably still going to use those eventually. You just don't get to see it this time around. And so I'll grab my crystal katana once again, and I'll just glue those little orange gems down. These kits have so much in them, and if you have not subscribed, I would highly encourage you to do so. I have so much left over, I could probably make another 10 cards, not even kidding. All right, so that finishes card number 3. For card number 4, I'm going to pull out my alcohol pearl inks. And with these babies, you have to shake the stew out of them because there's all that mica powder on the bottom. So I'm just going to shake until I can get all that mica powder shook up. I am going to use also this matte cardstock, so it's good for alcohol inks. That is by Ranger. And to start off, I'm going to put some alcohol blending solution all over that. And I'm going to work in a rainbow fashion. It just seemed fitting. So I am starting off with Intrigue, then Splendor, then Alchemy, then Sublime, and then Tranquil. And then I'm going to try and move those around a little bit with my marker spritzer. And then I'll go ahead and add a little bit more blending solution and add a little bit more of the Splendor and the Alchemy, and then just kind of move those around a little bit more. I don't play with this background too much because, like I said, I wanted this to be a rainbow background. And if I wanted to keep that rainbow going, I didn't want to go too crazy to blending around. So I do try and do a few more dots of the blending solution just to kind of add a little more interest to that background, spritz it a little bit, and then that's actually going to finish it as far as the background goes. I'll just let that sit off to the side to dry, and I'll clean up my mess. Now, I didn't show the stamping of the guitar because I end up not using any of those guitars, but I did stamp out the speaker, and I used the Raven Detail ink, and that ink is great because that's a solid image, but it really stamped out very, very nicely. So I fussy cut that out, and I went ahead and stamped, or I'm getting ready to stamp the sentiment, pardon my head. And because this was a matte cardstock, I thought I might be able to stamp right onto it. Turns out you can't. I didn't do a very good job. Maybe you could, but I didn't do it. So I grabbed some cardstock. That's an easy fix. And I will stamp that out onto some cardstock, and then I will fussy cut that out of that white cardstock. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then I'll cover all those pieces with some foam tape, and then I will adhere my card base down, or my card panel down to my card base, which is just some white cardstock. All these card bases are trimmed down to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and then scored at 5 1/2 inches to make top folding A2 size cards. Somebody asked me once why I do top folding A2 size cards, and to be honest with you, I don't know. It just seems to be what I grab. So I peeled off all the backing paper, and then I will adhere those pieces down so they do have some dimension, which is kind of nice. And then boom, your little mistake is completely covered. And I couldn't stop there. I decided to grab some Ebony Nouveau crystal drops, and I just add a few little spritzes of that, or little dots of that, all over my card in various dots. And then that is going to finish off card number 4. I didn't even smack those down like I normally do, but I do like the way this one turned out. So that's card number 4. Card number 5 was super fun to make because I got to pull out some Chroma Glaze by Brutus Monroe, as well as the Stencil of the Month for June. So I have some Strathmore watercolor paper, and I'm just going to tack that down with some washi tape, and I'm also going to tack down the Stencil of the Month right over the top as well with some washi tape. And then I'm going to pull out the Chroma Glaze. This is the Obsidian color, and I'm going to use just one of my Ranger palette knives. So I'll use that palette knife, and I'm just going to spread that Chroma Glaze out like butter. This stuff is like unlike anything that I have ever used before, and it is so gorgeous on these lighter cardstocks because when it dries, it has this beautiful shine to it. And it's just different. So it's not like, it doesn't seem like embossing powder to me. It's just neat. I can't really explain it. You just have to see it in person, and it is fun to use. So I spread that out pretty thin, and I'm going to clean off my stencil in the sink because I've never let this stuff dry on anything, and I don't know that I want to try. So I'm just going to run over to the sink and clean that and my palette knife off. And now I'm going to move on to stamping. So I'm going to take the guitar pick that says Rock On. I'm going to condition that on my hand because the oils will condition that a little bit because I've never used it before. And then I'm going to ink it up with the Raven ink, the detail ink, stamp that down, and then I'm going to fussy cut that out. I did try to heat set my Chroma Glaze just a little bit, and it does work to do this. You just don't want to keep the heat on it too long because it will cause it to bubble. So then I'll set that off to the side to dry a little bit more. And then I'm going to take the Rockstar ribbon, and this stuff is awesome because you can use your Copics or your alcohol markers on it. So you can get, if you just get white ribbons, you can change them to about any color you need with your alcohol ribbons or alcohol markers. So I changed it to a hot pink. And then I went ahead and tacked that down. I didn't show that on camera, but I did tack that down. And then I'm using some liquid glue on the enamel cassette, as well as some foam tape on the back of the Rock On. And then I'll just put a little bit more glue on the other side that connects to the enamel cassette. And then I'll use that liquid glue to adhere that to my lunchbox card base, which I love. If you've been watching my videos, I'm kind of obsessed with that lunchbox. I am using my crystal katana along with my tacky glue to tack down some of those sequins from the sequin mix. And I'm also going to pull out some of those stars because I love how the sequins are on there. but I thought, boy, those stars would just really add a little bit more. And I just keep going, kind of pushing, moving things around a little bit with my crystal katana, and when I'm happy, I'll just tack it down. So that's another reason why I just love this tool. It's so good at picking all those pieces up, and I really don't have to worry too much about trying to use it with my fingers, because if you watched when my craft space was all cleaned up and packed up and ready to move, I had a hard time fumbling around with my fingers. They felt a lot fatter than they are. And that's going to finish off card number 5. So let's go ahead and take a look at all of the cards that I made today with this kit. Like I said, I have plenty of stuff left over to do even more cards, but I would love to know what you think. If you had a favorite out of the ones that I made, please list that down below. Yeah, I'd love to know what you think. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button. That lets me know what stuff is your guys' favorite, and then I can make more of that. So thank you guys for watching and subscribing and commenting. And as always, thank you for stopping by.